was America's greatest lumberjack. He was such a big, tall man that when he stood up, his head seemed to touch the sky. Paul was so strong and powerful that he could chop down 100 trees with just one swing of his axe. People say that Paul was born big. In fact, some say that Paul was the biggest baby ever born in the state of Maine. Forests fell down when he sneezed, and people were sometimes blown clear out of the state. Paul's parents didn't know what to do. Then Paul's father decided to float Paul out to sea. That way, everyone in Maine would be more comfortable. But floating Paul out to sea caused more problems. When Paul rocked in his cradle, huge waves crashed on shore. And people ran to high places to keep from drowning. Fortunately, Paul grew up fast and learned to be careful with his size and strength. Soon, he was welcome wherever he went. The place Paul loved best was the forest. He loved cutting down trees and shouting, "Timber!" in a voice that roared like thunder. For Paul, being a lumberjack was easy. He could pick up hundreds of trees and carry them to the river with no trouble at all. Even dangerous work like floating logs downstream to the sawmill was fun. But being the best, strongest, and biggest lumberjack in America was a lonely life. Paul often wished he had a friend his size to help him. Then came the winter of the blue snow, and Paul found just the friend he was looking for. Paul was walking in the forest and stumbled over something buried in the snow. "What's this?" he wondered. When he cleared away the snow, there was a huge blue baby ox, shivering and half frozen from the cold. Paul felt sorry for the huge baby ox. He carried it home, nursed it, and named it Babe. They became good friends right away. Babe grew and grew until he became almost as big as Paul. Then he and Paul traveled together, logging all over the country. What great adventures they had. But Babe's huge size caused accidents, like the time he upset a cart of water and made the Mississippi River. When Paul and Babe reached the North Woods, Paul opened a logging camp. He hired the best men he could find. The men liked working for Paul Bunyan because they liked the way he did things. And Paul did everything in a big way. To make sure his men got enough pancakes to eat, Paul made the biggest griddle in the world. That griddle was so big that the camp cooks greased it by skating with slabs of bacon on their feet. When pancakes were cooked on that special griddle, you can bet they were the best pancakes in the state of Michigan. Everywhere Paul and Babe traveled, they left their mark on the land. One day in Wisconsin, Paul spied a crooked logging road. "Let's straighten it out," he said to Babe. Paul hitched Babe to one end of the crooked road. "Come on, Babe. Pull." Babe snorted and panted and puffed and pulled with all his might. Crack! Snap! Out came one curve in the road, then another, then another. The road was no match for Babe. The loggers cheered for Paul and Babe. The road was straight as an arrow and easy to climb. Paul and Babe moved on. One day, Babe was so thirsty that Paul had to dig the Great Lakes so Babe would have enough water to drink. On and on, they moved west across the country. Paul wanted to go out west where trees grew bigger than mountains. In Colorado, Paul accidentally dragged his pick along the ground and made the Grand Canyon. Another time, Babe put out a raging forest fire by swallowing a wet fog and blowing it on the fire. Further west, Babe squashed some hills and formed the passes in the Cascade Mountains in Washington. Wherever they went, Paul and Babe stopped at logging camps and helped out with the work. Although they were getting older, they were still very, very strong. Paul and Babe changed the geography of America as they traveled across the country. Then, one day, they suddenly disappeared. Where did they go? Some people say that Paul and Babe were seen in Alaska, helping to clear the wilderness. Others say they went to Texas. But wherever you are, whenever you feel the earth tremble or see giant trees falling, or hear the cry of timber thundering through the forest, you'll probably find Paul Bunyan and his great blue ox at work.